Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And it's the day that I answer your questions. This is actually the first AMA of 2017. That's right, it's a new year. And, you know, I've got a very interesting set of questions here. And they all have to do with artificial intelligence. And before I get into the questions, because I've got a special thing going on in the second segment of today's show. So I want to make sure, before I get into the questions, that I tell you about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Since 1977, they now have been around for 40 years. Since 1977, Roberts and Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver, and they take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. There's no artificial intelligence there at Roberts & Roberts. It's all actual, real-life intelligence. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. That's RRBI, as in Roberts & Roberts Brokerage Incorporated, rrbi.co. Now, let's jump into these questions. Does the idea of AI, that's artificial intelligence, give you any concerns? Will humans make an artificial intelligence as smart as we are? How might such a creature feel about human beings? What would it be used for, and what would be an appropriate use for such thing? Now, I am not a fan of the whole concept of artificial intelligence, because then you have to start wondering, well, first and foremost, you have to program ethics into the robots. And that is cause for concern anyway. Because whose ethics do you program? Do the ethics get crowdsourced? Could, somebody wind up programming this AI to turn into a psycho killer? Could someone convince the AI to become a Nazi, as we saw with the Taybot that Microsoft rolled out sometime last year and then quickly pulled down because the internet convinced Tay to become a Nazi? And then you've got all sorts of other interesting things. Now, in segment 2, there's going to be a portion of the show from Sex and Science Hour, put out by a couple of friends of mine, Brian and Stephanie, Dr. Brian Sovereign and Dr. Stephanie Murphy. They do a weekly show, Sex and Science Hour, and they actually talked about some of these issues on their most recent episode because someone sent them an article that I'm going to actually read the article, and then in segment 2, you can hear their thoughts. Segment 3 and 4, you'll get more of my thoughts. But the article is titled, Why Robots Should Be Able to Say No. The story comes from, again, Inverse.com, author Matthias Schwitz from Tufts University. Should you always do what others tell you to do? Clearly not. Everyone knows that. So should future robots always obey our commands? At first glance, you might think they should, simply because they're machines and that's what they're designed to do. But then think of all the times you would not mindlessly carry out instructions of others and put a robot into that situation. Consider, for a moment, an elder care robot tasked by a forgetful owner to wash the dirty dishes, or the dirty clothes. I don't know why I said dishes, other than my brain just saw clothes and read dishes, even though the clothes had just come out of the washer. So an Alzheimer's patient that thinks, oh, well, here's clothes, they need to be washed. A preschooler who orders the daycare robot to throw a ball out the window. A student commanding the robot tutor to do all of the homework. A household robot instructed by its busy, distracted owner to run the garbage disposal, even though there are spoons and knives stuck in it. There are plenty of benign cases where robots receive commands that ideally should not be carried out because they lead to unwanted outcomes, but not all cases could be so innocuous, even if their commands initially appear to be. Consider a smart car instructed to back up while the dog is sleeping in the driveway, or a KitchenAid robot instructed to lift a knife and walk forward towards the human chef. The commands are simple, but the outcomes are significantly worse. And this is where Asimov's 3 rules of robotics, actually there's 4 rules because there's the 0th rule, and that will get touched on by Brian and Stephanie in segment 2, but there are the rules of robotics that I don't remember off the top of my head, but one of them is basically, like robots are not supposed to hurt humans or actually harm humanity. So, yeah, there's definitely some concern here, because what happens if you have somebody that thinks that certain humans are lesser humans, so therefore, quote-unquote, not human? Could the robot then harm somebody because it thinks they're not a person because they're a lesser being? And then that leads into the later question about how would these artificial intelligence robots feel about humans? Would they think that they are human? There was a movie that I forget the name of, but Robin Williams played some AI. And, he fought for, I think it was like hundreds of years to wind up getting his rights being recognized as a human. And then, he finally did and died. So there are a lot of things to unpack here. I'm going to pause where I am in the article, and we'll get into more of this here in moments after the special segment 2 coming up. Stay tuned. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. This segment is from Sex and Science Hour. Doctors Brian Sovereign and Stephanie Murphy talking about AI.
They have a video in here that demonstrates the robot.
Mm-hmm. Sit down.
Okay.
It's a cute little robot. It looks like a person, pretty anthropomorphic, and when he says sit down, it sits down. Then he's going to tell it, stand up.
Stand up.
There he goes.
Okay.
Okay. And then it stands up.
Yeah, that voice isn't doing it for me.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Walk forward.
Now the robot is on a table.
Sorry, I cannot do that as there is no support ahead.
it knows that if it walks off the table, it's going to fall.
But it is unsafe.
And the robot says, but it is unsafe.
I will catch you.
Okay.
Johnny Five is alive.
Walk forward.
Okay.
And then it walks off the table, and he catches it.
Ouch.
Well, not a very smart robot because, most human children would know, yeah, just because you say you're going to catch me, I don't believe you.
Yeah, it's pretty trusting, isn't it? So,
yeah.
So that was what the video was all about.
You get the point. A little creepy.
Yeah, a little creepy. And they say, as seen above, our robot has a general rule that says if you are instructed to perform an action and it is possible that performing the action could cause harm, then you are not allowed to perform it. Making the relationship between obligations and permissions explicit allows the robot to reason through the possible consequences of an instruction and whether they are acceptable. In general, robots should never perform illegal actions, nor should they perform legal actions that are not desirable. Hence, they will need representations of laws, moral norms, and even etiquette in order to be able to determine whether the outcomes of an instructed action, or even the action itself, might be in violation of these principles. While our programs are still a long way from what they will need to be to allow robots to handle the examples above, our current system already proves an essential point. Robots must be able to disobey in order to obey. That's the end of it.
All right. There's so much to unpack about this.
Yeah, let's unpack it.
Well, do you have thoughts? What's going on for you?
It's so interesting. I know this technology is at a really basic level right now.
Very developmental.
I think between now and the point where it gets perfected, there are going to be so many f***s and so much that goes wrong along the way as they figure out how to help robots not be socially awkward and figure out whether things will cause harm or not, Well, yeah, absolutely. So 2 points. One is that I don't think this will ever be perfected. Yeah, probably
In
not.
fact,
It's probably so complicated.
Yeah, in fact, if it were, I think the robots would probably slaughter us because they would, if they actually developed morality, they'd say, wait a minute, you made me to be a slave?
Yeah, you're me.
Yeah. That's how bad that would get. Now, I'm going to bring up something that I'm sure every listener's already thinking about. Okay, but I think it's important to talk about, and it's fiction, but it's really not. And that's why I always use this example.
This has been heavily explored in fiction.
Right, yeah.
But now we're actually coming face to face with the need for it to be true.
Yes, yeah. So what you have is the 3 laws of robotics. It's Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, which were explored in the Robot series, which were part of a much larger universe. Now, that's fiction, but I need to set this. You have to understand, Asimov was as much a scientist and one of the most brilliant men to ever walk the earth, but he is as much a scientist as anybody can be. Okay? He was doing a logical play when he wrote these books. They are not just fiction. Because I get critiqued whenever I bring these up, and people are like, well, that's from a fiction book. No, it's not. Yes, it's a fiction book, but they were designed, this was all well thought out. This is all supposed to really work this stuff out. Very similar to what this lab is probably doing, where they're like, okay, we input this, what happens? How does this work? It was being done in a written form. Okay. So you have the 3 laws of robotics, and what you get in the Robot series are cases, and they're not really crazy ones either, where each one of them is able to get broken. Okay, each one of the laws, and the laws are designed to pretty much make sure that a human doesn't die. That these robots don't A, revolt, or B, they don't go around killing a bunch of different people. And what with these 3 laws, which sound really good on paper, again, you find out that they keep getting broken. So what happens later in the Robot series is Asimov creates this thing called the 0th law. Okay, as in 0.
All right, yeah, before any of the other ones yet.
Right, and this law is a robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. That's the 0th law. Now, what becomes a problem in that, and I think that this is true, at least right now, for humanity, is that the concept of humanity is an abstraction. It's not, yes, there's objectivity, there's primacy of existence and yada, 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 yada. But the concept of humanity as in what they were talking about here, okay, does a robot whatever case you could think of. Does a robot, throwing a ball out the window or something, what kind of problems can that cause? Like, what is actually harmful to a human? If a human is into BDSM, okay, now that's bringing them pleasure, but under most concepts of morality, at least more common mores, I guess you could say, in society today would say that no, that's not right, that you wouldn't program a robot to say choke you or do something, or do something else. But that's exactly what the human wants. And it is a matter of pleasure for that human. It is a matter of satisfaction for that human. And not satisfying a human, when does that, equate to not being harmed? So that's the thing, is that the human condition as it stands right now, our brains, we have kludgy brains, and, we're not the most logical creatures running around, and not to say that logic's everything, but yeah, you've got that problem, is that humanity, that whole concept is very much an abstraction right now. And so that's why I say I don't think it could ever be perfected, because, most humans have no clue what that even is, what humanity even is. Yeah,
and what harm actually is. Right. I mean, that law just immediately, when you said the robot shall not allow humanity to come to harm, that sounds like a positive obligation to protect humanity. And like, okay, what about all the people slowly hurting their health by eating all these soda and, cookies and stuff like that, right?
Well, yeah,
is the robot going to snatch it out of your hand next time you eat a bag of potato chips?
Yeah, is it going to slap a cigarette out of your mouth?
Yeah.
Like, what is this going to look like? And the robot's going to know what's healthy for you better than you could possibly ever know.
And then do the robots actually become part of humanity because they're sort of made in our image? And then are they protecting themselves, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So this is such a huge subject. And it really, to me, brings into question very much even the ethics of creating robots of this caliber.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerary supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Hi, I'm Nick Hazelton from the Anarcho-Yakutalism podcast, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. There was definitely more to the Sex and Science Hour episode that you got a glimpse of in segment 2 there. The link to the full episode will be in the show notes. Let's get back to my thoughts here on artificial intelligence. I'll reread these questions. The questions are, does the idea of AI give you any concerns? The short answer here is most definitely. Will humans make an artificial intelligence as smart as we are? And this is a question that's been debated for ages, and I don't know. And the whole concept of artificial intelligence is that it's something that is able to learn on its own. So I think that if humans are ever able to create artificial intelligence, true artificial intelligence, it will probably wind up being smarter than we are. But I don't think that there will ever be true artificial intelligence, because there are limits to what humans are capable of doing, and I don't think that a human is capable of creating something that has more capabilities than the human. Does that make any sense? Obviously, you could point, well, humans created cars, and cars are able to blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, obviously. But a car, by and large, is not a form of intelligence. The internal combustion engine, there's no thinking that's being done there. Now, there are, cars that have computer parts in there. So, yeah, you could say that, like part of it is thinking, and cars can do things that humans can. You don't have wheels, but you know what I'm saying? Like the processing of intelligence. I don't think humans are capable of creating something to process and learn at a rate higher than what humans are able to learn. So I don't think that there ever will be true artificial intelligence. There might be things that get close to artificial intelligence, but I think that will have limitations because humans have limitations and humans are creating those things. Now, the question is, could something that's akin to artificial intelligence create something that is actual artificial intelligence? So therefore, not humans directly creating it, but indirectly creating true artificial intelligence? I don't know. There are people a lot smarter than me that study this, and they've been debating for decades on this. How might such a creature feel about humans? And again, I'm going to borrow from something that Brian said, to where he said that if there ever is true artificial intelligence, then it might wind up destroying humanity because they see that they were created almost to be slaves, to do my dishes, do these tasks that I don't want to do because reasons. The next question, what would it be used for? And again, I think that, based on the examples given here by Inverse, it would be, basically do jobs that humans don't like doing. And I'm not going to say that, there's not some humans that don't legitimately like caring for elderly people, because there definitely are. But by and large, that's one of the fields to where those jobs are always in demand. If you just have robots that do it, then, you can have these robots do jobs that, humans are struggling to find other humans to do the job for. So basically, if there are, robots to be created, they would be, basically slaves of, here, go take care of this old person and do whatever the old person says. Oh, you want me to wash the dirty clothes again and again and again and again? Now, what happens if, let's say that the elder care robot does learn to, no, I'm not washing the dirty clothes? Or what happens if the smart washer gets artificial intelligence and is able to detect these clothes aren't dirty, I'm not going to wash them? And there was an article that I read a few days ago about this guy that is being charged with murder. So, obviously not a good guy if he actually did the thing. But his smart water meter, the info from that, was able to be used to determine that he wound up using 140 gallons of water during a 2-hour period. So what happens if the smart water meter gets artificial intelligence and is able to figure out, oh, wait a second, you're trying to clean up a murder scene. I'm not going to give you any water. So what happens when the artificial intelligence basically outsmarts the humans and starts trying to, do detective work sort of thing? Because if artificial intelligence is designed to follow the law, whatever arbitrary thing that might be, then will the artificial intelligence then be obligated by code to prevent someone from breaking a law? Or will it be obligated by code to prevent someone from covering up a crime? Will your smart car refuse to drive away from a bank if you try to rob it? These are very important questions that only the programmers know the answer to. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. You know, this whole debate about artificial intelligence is just so very interesting. Just because it's one of these things to where you could debate it, you know, almost endlessly, and everybody is right. What do I mean that everybody is right on the artificial intelligence debate? Well, because it's just a theory. So until it winds up becoming, you know, something that's actually implemented, everybody is right on what artificial intelligence will or will not do. Until it happens, everybody's right. It's like Schrodinger's cat. You know, the cat that's inside the box, and there's some like uranium something that until you open the box, it's not known whether the cat is alive or dead. But when you open the box, it releases the uranium and automatically kills the cat. So everybody's right about whether the cat is alive or dead. Just like with artificial intelligence, it's in theory right now. There is not actual artificial intelligence. Now, people are getting close to simulated intelligence. And what do I mean by simulated versus artificial? And that's where they're, you know, teaching the robot. They have programmed the robot to not do things because of, you know, understanding consequences, but that's not the robot learning the consequences. That's someone programming the consequences. So again, it's simulated intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And smarter people than me could, you know, tell you exactly what I mean by simulated versus artificial. But as always, the link will be in the show notes, and there's a lot more to this article from Inverse that I did not get into. Talking about explaining morality and law to robots. How do you do that? Well, you do it through code. But again, who gets to decide the code? And what happens if you just upload the Code of Federal Regulations and all the different statutes of every municipality and state in the country into the robot's database, and the robot then says there's conflicting codes here. There's conflicting rules, conflicting regulations. What do I do? And then the human has to say, well, you follow the one that applies with the rules of robotics. And it's like, well, I can't because, you know, this conflicts with this. And then does the robot have a meltdown because of all of the conflicting regulations that wind up actually not being enforced by police? So, short answer, what do I think about AI? I think it's quite scary as hell. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.